in there.
Yeah.
You just hit that and then you're good to go. Right now, it should tell you that on the top left of the screen that this is being recorded so that nobody's recorded without their knowledge.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah, there's lots of good things you can do with this program. I went ahead and got the premium version for all the use I was getting out of it.
Nice. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't really know that much about it, so this is all new.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I've been hosting quarantine drinking and games parties
Awesome.
on Zoom. So I get quite a bit of use out of it.
That's awesome.
Besides this right here, what we're doing today. Um, have you done many podcasts before?
I've done a handful,
Yeah.
and I've actually been working at putting together my own as well.
What were you thinking of doing?
Uh, well, it's going to be called the Roadhead Podcast, and it's basically just me and some of my musician friends telling road stories, and you know, nothing nothing exceptionally salacious or is that's going to get people into trouble.
Yeah, that's what my next question was.
Well, I had an interview with the guy that I've known for a long time that he actually played percussion on a Jimi Hendrix recording,
Mm,
which is kind of cool.
yeah.
He was like working at A&M for 30 years or something like that. So and he was good friends with Chris Cornell. So at the end of the interview, I said, "Hey, is there anything you can tell me about Chris?" And he told me the story that I'll never be able to use. It's like because it doesn't make him look good. It doesn't make
Yeah.
the people that he was talking about look good. And it's like I'm not. No, that's
Yeah.
I don't want to besmirch the dead or the living for that matter. So
That's a good choice. That's one thing I try to do in my interviews and with this podcast in general is keep it light and keep it positive.
yeah.
Because I've talked to a couple people who have a lot of controversy around them, and I just decided not to go there.
Oh, like who?
Okay. Color Me Bad had an incident where the lead singer, or I don't know if I'm allowed to call him the lead singer because there was four in the band, but he got drunk before a show. This was only a few years ago. Um, and shoved the other lead singer to the ground and started calling him names and stuff.
Mm,
And so this is stuff that's all over the press and whatnot, but I just didn't want to bring it up with the guy when I talked to him.
yeah.
Like, does he really need to go live through that again?
Yeah.
Like, how many times does he need to talk about it? So it's like, why bother? If anybody needs to know about it, it's out there in the public record anyway. That's
Probably a good choice.
just a mild version of
Hmm.
something, but
Well, I
still.
saw there's an asterisk beside the Moxie Fruvis one,
Mhm.
and I know that
Yeah.
they have well, one guy in particular is not in a good place.
Yeah, and that was my very first interview I did for this podcast was with Murray Foster, who is the bassist for Moxie Fruvis,
Yeah,
and I decided not to bring up Gameshi at all.
probably for the best.
Oh, especially when I'm brand new at this. I was
Yeah.
afraid to stick my foot in my mouth and ruin it for myself, and I'm
Hmm.
sure he's had plenty of times where he had to weather questions about him. I wanted to
Hmm.
focus on the music and not worry about the other stuff.
It
Oh,
took me a year to get King of Spain out of my head.
it's a good tune.
It's ridiculous. Like, and I think I sent an email. Like, I was a roadie for them for their American tour,
Yeah.
and so I got to hear that song every night for 27 nights because they did 27 shows in 30 days in 27 cities. It was ridiculous.
What I learned about Moxie Fruvis from that interview is that they, at the time, were pretty tame. Like they'd sit on the bus and do Sudokus and stuff like that. Like nothing too crazy.
Uh huh.
At least that's what they said. Or maybe only Maria can speak for himself. I don't know
Hmm.
about the other guys. That's what I keep getting from people. Oh no, we were good. Road life is hard. We didn't get drunk. We didn't do
Hmm.
drugs.
Right. Right.
But you have an inside scoop on how road life works, and I'm glad that you're considering doing a podcast.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's just it. I mean, like, there's so many people that are in the trenches and those are the stories I love, anyways. So I can sit around because like it always turns into that scene from Jaws where
Hmm.
like we're sitting around talking like showing each other scars emotional or not. And it's like, all right, you wouldn't believe what happened when I played in, whatever random place, Vancouver.
Those
And
are wow.
yeah, I love those stories. Like when you can sit around and just, it always ends up into be like, we end up trying to top each other with the crazy shit that's happened. And yeah, it's always fun.
That'd be really fun. That was always the life I imagined for myself. Would be like on the road to in some capacity. It just never
Yeah.
really worked out that way. But
No, you
yeah,
never know.
I'm not dead yet.
Exactly. Plenty of time.
So everybody, Trevor Finlay has an extensive touring history as a musician. And you're doing your own solo material as well as working with others. Do you want to tell people about some of the bands you've worked with, some of the artists?
Sure. Um, well, other than playing with myself,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I guess the other I've done guitar work for other people. I just produced a record for a woman named Stacy K. Black, who her star is kind of on the rise right now. Like she's a TV director,
Mm-hmm.
and she wanted to do a passion project in Nashville. So I produced that for her. And I think the artist that everybody has heard of in some capacity is Tiffany. I was her guitar player for 8 years.
That's a long time.
It is. It is. We've seen a lot of things. We've done a lot of shows, and yeah, she's a great lady.
She came to Edmonton last year,
Yeah.
and I finally got to meet her. Although it was a quick, brief, like meet and greet situation. I mentioned to say that I knew you. And we had a good laugh, and she's so sweet about and happy that I knew you, and
That's awesome.
it was cute.
Yeah.
I finally got my Tiffany vinyl signed. I was very happy.
Oh, very cool. Very
And
cool.
yeah,
She's she's a very, very cool person. Very, very, very down to earth. She's aware of who she is, and she doesn't shy away from it.
mm-hmm.
Like there's a few people like that. Like that list that you sent me, Rick Astley was one of the other names,
Mm-hmm.
and we played a few festivals with him in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
And he's another guy that he's very aware of who he is. He knows what Rick rolling is, and he is all about it. So if it wasn't for Rick rolling, arguably he may not have the career resurgence that he did or he
Right.
does. So he released a new record while we were in the UK. He released a new record, and it actually went. It charted. I think it actually hit #1 while we were there. So it was it was a very cool thing. And he's another very nice guy. Like that's one of the great things about some of the shows that we were doing, where it was a bunch of the older bands, like a lot of the 80s bands and stuff like that. Is everybody has sort of been through it. Maybe they were monsters when they were younger, but then as they got older, it's like, okay, well, we can still do this. So maybe I'll just be appreciative and kind of humble. So
No, yeah, they're self-aware, and I think it was smart of him to take that time to do something productive with it and put music out.
yeah.
You know, yeah. I love people who can have a laugh at themselves. They're the most endearing,
Yes.
for sure. But I wanted to eventually do an episode where I was hoping I could talk to Tiffany about the album New Inside, because it was my favorite Tiffany album of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it was also released in the 90s, which the first two were 80s albums.
Yep.
So since this podcast pertains to the 90s pretty strictly, that's that would be what I'd love to do. So maybe one day down the road, who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well,
Now
she's pretty you can pretty easy to reach out to anyways.
I heard her recently on Lance Bass's podcast. She was promoting, she's working on like a cooking with Tiffany type thing right now from her website. So she's keeping very busy during this time.
Oh, she always has. I mean, before she started hitting the road again quite as extensively as she was doing, she had a boutique here in Nashville. I mean, she was on, was it Wife Swap? I think it's like every once in a while she'll show up on these random reality shows. Like, she was in, I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, the Australian edition.
I was going to say, is that a UK thing? I've heard the title.
I think that it might be UK and Australia. I'm not sure exactly where it is, but it's you know, and it was funny, like I hadn't heard of any of the people that they had
Mhm.
on. It's like, I'm a celebrity, get me out of here. Really? Are you?
Yeah, in that region.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that means Tiffany would be a huge international star to them. That's for sure.
Well, that's just it. She's the most grounded icon you'll ever meet.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel blessed that I got a chance to talk with her briefly. Also, I want to talk about where you came from and where your career started because you're from Ottawa, correct? You're Canadian.
Yeah. I was actually born in Winnipeg, but I moved to Ottawa when I was 3 years old. So I have no memories of Winnipeg at all, other
Ah,
than my, all my family still resides in a small town in Manitoba. Um, you know, the extended family, the aunts and uncles and cousins, and a lot of them are still farmers and ranchers
hmm,
and you know, the lifeblood of the country. Um,
yes.
but yeah, I was in bands for a long time. I decided to go solo in '96 just because like I was tired of putting a band together and then breaking up. So I knew if I put my name on it, there'd be no way I was going to break up unless, you know, I actually just called it quits or retired.
Hmm.
And yeah, I started doing records. I recorded my first one in '98. I've done 7, I think, since.
Nice.
And my last one was it's called Get Into It. And yeah, I'm really it's a very cliche thing to say for somebody in my position, but I'm the most proud of it that I think that I've ever been for recording, just because we did it in 4.5 days. There's no tricks. There's no computer fixes after the fact. It's like we just recorded it. We played it as good as we could on that particular day, and
Wow.
what you hear is what you get. So like, you know, it's because like the stuff that I listen to, none of it is perfect, and
Right.
I have a hard time with music that is perfect because I just sort of like I don't hear music. I see a grid in my head. It's like
Yeah.
how do you dance to a grid? But
Too
I guess
polished. Too,
yeah.
yeah. I can think of some examples in my head, but some of them are by bands I like, so I don't really want to go there. But
Well, I mean, like auto tune is one of my biggest pet peeves, just
Mhm.
because it's you know, it's almost like, you know, with auto tune now anybody can do it. Well, the way that the way we decided to record this one was to go in and actually do it, and because we can do it. And I was able to call some of my I call them my rock star buddies,
Mm.
just because you know I had Ron Lavella, who plays drums for Vertical Horizon. I've got Michael Klooster, who plays keyboards for Smash Mouth, and the guy that engineered and helped me produce some of the stuff. His name is Brian Facchino, and he's, you know, a monster guitar player. Played with a group called the Pat McGee Band back in, I think, in the '90s actually. So
Oh yeah,
yeah,
fantastic. I'm
yeah.
glad. What got you from going from Canada to the US now that you're currently in Nashville and you have been for several years, right?
Yeah, I've been here for 12 years.
What made you just decided to go because you needed to make music and that was the right route for you at the time?
You know, I thought that if I wanted to go to a hub, then I was going to end up in Toronto or Vancouver, or if I came to the States, it would be New York or Los Angeles.
Mm.
And all 4 of those places have ridiculous living expenses. Like I'd have to get a job in order to afford to be able to live there, in order to be able to, you know, try and do what I want to do. But then I wouldn't be able to do anything because I'd be having to keep that job in order to keep my, you know, keep my apartment or whatever. And
Mm.
I saw this like cycle in my head, and I got nervous about it.
You're
It,
right. I don't know how people can go to Vancouver to be a musician without something in place already.
yeah, well, that's just it. I mean, people do it, and people thrive and are able to do it. Um, it wasn't in the cards for me, and plus that, and like, it's they're really big cities,
Mm.
and I like cities, and they're a lot of fun to visit. I can't imagine living there. So
It's
now, of course,
overwhelming.
I say that, and Nashville has grown exponentially over the last few years. But my manager at the time had a meeting in Nashville and invited me to come and check it out. And I'd never been. I mean, Nashville wasn't even on my radar. So it was like, okay, sure. Like, we'll go. And as soon as I got off the plane, when we landed in Nashville, I was like, oh, this is weird. Like, I feel really comfortable for some reason.
Mm.
And I ended up meeting a bunch of great people, like some songwriters, some publishers. I met one publisher in particular named Gilles Godard, who works for a company called Olay. And he asked me to, sing him some songs or whatever. And so I did, and he said, wow, that's some really good stuff. Hey, when can you come back? Because like I'd like to set you up with a few of my writer friends and see what you guys can come up with. It's like, well, I could come back, in maybe 6 months or something. He goes, no. I need you back sooner than that.
Mm.
It's like, oh, okay. So over the course of a year, like we ended up going back, I think 3 months later. And that was when I decided I wanted to move, just because I'm like, every day was some sort of new adventure, and it felt like it was where I was supposed to be. So I decided I was going to move on the second trip. On the third trip was to look for a place to live. And then the fourth time down was, all the paperwork was done,
Mm.
and the U-Haul was packed, and here we are.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how many years has it been now?
It's 12.
12 years.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I still have yet to visit Nashville. I think one thing that might surprise people is a lot of times they think of it as country music. Obviously, it's the country music mecca, but at the same time, there's a lot of rock music and other types of music coming out of Nashville as well. There's
Yeah. Well,
like
I mean,
all genres.
it's Music City.
Yeah,
It's Music City. So that's what I keep reminding people.
that's right.
Because like country music is it's not high as high on my list of things I enjoy as some things. So I much prefer like the blues side or the
Mm.
rock side and of music. So
Have you ever
yeah.
played at the Bluebird?
I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got familiar with that place from watching the show, Nashville.
And it's actually okay. So here's a fun fact. I've never actually seen an episode of that show.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was talking to I talked to some of my friends that were watching it.
Yeah.
It's like, so are you enjoying it? It's like, this is not realistic at all. Like somebody gets a job at the Bluebird, and then next thing you know, they're playing the Grand Ole Opry. Like that doesn't happen.
How annoying that must be for people who live there, I'm sure.
Well, I mean, it's entertainment. So
it's one of those like soap drama type shows, right? With a lot of cool music, and it was actually a really good platform for some songwriters in town to get their music showcased.
Absolutely.
Through the show. But I enjoyed it. I got addicted to it. So I've asked a lot of questions about you, and I'm really glad for your time today and for talking with me about this artist that we were going to cover, Dan Baird.
Yeah.
Is that how you pronounce his last name? Baird?
I believe so.
I want to make sure I get that right.
That's how it's spelled. And I don't know that I've paid attention to somebody. I've said his name to a few people and nobody's corrected me. So I think
that's the only way you can pronounce it.
I think so.
But there's always people who manage to screw it up. So I didn't want to be one of them. Now, the genre that Dan Baird was primarily involved in was considered cowpunk, an alternative country.
Really?
Yeah. According to Wikipedia, this is where I got a lot of my information. Cowpunk. I said, what's cowpunk? Country punk. And I thought, I listened to him on Shuffle on Spotify yesterday. I could definitely see the country flavor in there, but I didn't really get elements of punk out of it.
I think that's actually really interesting because like now that I think about it, if I think back to that first Georgia Satellites record, even Keep Your Hands to Yourself has sort of it's like a country but mixed with blues, and his voice is, it's what's the way of saying it? He plays guitar like Keith Richards and sings like Bon Scott.
Yeah.
You know, he's got sort of like that. He's like shout singing.
Yeah, I noticed that, but it wasn't sometimes that irritates me in a vocalist, but I get that from him.
Well,
Like,
it's you know, with him, I think like you almost feel like you hear its legitimacy. Like
mhm.
you can hear it's like it's coming from a really deep, dark place.
Yep. I'm
Yeah,
feeling it. I'm whatever he's feeling, I'm feeling it when I listen to him sing.
yeah. Well, the way we actually got on to Dan Baird at all is because somebody posted that, you know, that thing that's been going on with Facebook about like, you know, 10 days, 10 albums thing.
Yeah.
And Mike Brazeau had
Mhm.
posted that he put on love songs for the hearing impaired. I think that's one of the albums he was talking about.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, that's amazing. That's the first time that I've actually seen anybody post anything about Dan Baird. Uh, I became a fan because I actually saw him here in town at a place called the Mercy Lounge, and he was playing with his band. I think Homemade Sin, I think is what
Mhm.
the band was called,
That's right.
and like it was a master class in rock and roll. It was absolutely unbelievable. Like his guitar player's name was Warner Hodges, and
Mhm.
he played with a band called Jason and the Scorchers.
Okay.
And if you have an opportunity to check out videos from that, like just go and try and find any kind of live videos of Jason and the Scorchers and watch the guitar player. Like not only is he amazing at as a guitar player, but he's a showman. He took the stuff that Chuck Berry was doing and added like these ridiculous spins and kicks and like he's actually like just, you know, it's almost like he's
Wow.
slam dancing with a guitar. Yeah, it's a very cool thing. And the whole night of watching this show is like, holy shit, like this is unbelievable. And I went and I bought as many Dan Baird records as I could get my hands on. So yeah, and it's you know, he does a really cool version of Hush, which is a Deep Purple song.
Mm.
Um, he's one of these guys that I know way more about him than I thought I did.
Mm.
You know, it's like one of these people that uh, you know, Colin Linden was actually another one of those for me, except that with
Ah.
that I actually totally embarrassed myself because you know, we were talking about maybe potentially working together one day, and he said, "Well, why do you want to, you know, why do you want to work with me?" And I said, "Well, I really love the production that you did on," and I started naming off like a bunch of stuff that he's done. And then I sort of stopped because I wasn't really looking at him as I was talking. I have a tendency of, as I'm talking, I'll look away and sort of like not because I don't want to get distracted or lose my train of thought.
Right.
So, and then I stopped and I realized what I was doing. And I looked at him. I said, "So do you need me to say your entire resume or like," you know, and I have a feeling that Dan Barrett, if I ever had a conversation with him, it would be very similar.
Mm.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned Colin Linden.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I was first aware of him as Blackie and the Rodeo Kings and the things he's done up in Canada. But then also, obviously now I think he still lives in Nashville.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
But his production work with he did I think he did a Sue Foley record or two.
Mm.
He's worked with
That's a good name. I'm glad you mentioned her. I'm going to write her name down.
yeah. Paul Reddick was another one. He also did David Wilcox. He did a record on him, and yeah, I mean like just it all of it was really cool. And we were actually playing on like a blues cruise together, and I played a David Wilcox song
Mm.
that I forgot that he was on the boat, and I played a song from the record that he produced, and like I'm playing, and all of a sudden I felt something sort of like you know how you feel like you have a presence somewhere around you, and
Mm.
I turned and I looked, and he was standing right to the side of the stage as I was playing this song. He was like, oh.
Pressure.
Yeah, well, that's not too intimidating at all.
No, no. Oh, wow. So why did he leave the Georgia Satellites to begin with? I thought they had a good thing going on there.
You know that I don't know.
Mm.
I don't know. I don't think I've ever even heard any rumors or anything.
It doesn't
I
seem
think
like the band had a falling out because a lot of the members went with him.
yeah. Well, it may have also been that maybe he just, he might be. It might be as simple as, he doesn't want to be trapped into one thing. Because again, like with, there was Dan Baird, and then there's Dan Baird and Homemade Sin, and then there's the Yahoos, which
Oh my
is one of
goodness,
his
there's a
later
whole
bands.
list here.
Yeah. So I
And
think
people he's
maybe he's
played
just
with.
maybe he just likes to be free as a bird. I don't know.
Very much so. Could be.
Yeah.
I mean, usually I figure if someone's the lead singer of a band already, why would they want to do a solo album? Well, probably because they wanted to venture out and do something that the band wasn't into.
Yeah.
You
Or
know,
maybe, he just wanted to do all the work and get recognized for the fact that he was doing all the work. I don't know.
that's fair.
Yeah.
So the album Love Songs for the Hearing Impaired was the first time I had heard of him, because he had a huge single on the radio, which was
Yeah.
very odd at the time because it's kind of got a Southern rock sound. And the climate of music at the time, 1992, 93, it was grunge, pop, R&B. It seemed like a very strange type of song to have on your top 40, but it was
Yeah.
there. And it was called I Love You, period.
And what a great song. What great lyrics. All of it. All of it was just great.
The lyrics are fantastic. And I
Yeah.
think like it was so quirky with that chorus and the words to it that it got people's attention.
And I don't think he actually wrote that. I think that everything else, with the exception of some of the rock covers that he's done, I don't think he actually wrote that one. But I think that he put it on his record specifically because it was so engaging. Like, at first maybe I have a vague recollection of seeing him in an interview or something where he said that, like somebody played it for him. He said, "Oh, that's cute," or whatever. And then next thing you know, he had it like it was constantly in his head. And it just kind of stuck in his craw, and that's why he put it on the record. And then it became
super
a hit.
catchy.
Yeah.
It was written by Terry Anderson,
There you go.
who actually co-wrote several of the tracks on the album already. So, but yes, that one was exclusively one writer.
Mm-hmm.
And that album came out in the end of 92, and it was produced by heavyweights, Rick Rubin and Brendan O'Brien.
Wow.
So those are good people to be working with.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I remember like when it was on the radio, it was kind of because I'm a bit late to the game of really appreciating grunge for what it was.
Me too.
Yeah. But while it was happening, I was just, I think I was in my, I was probably really deep into my blues phase of like, if it wasn't blues, then it's crap and I'm not interested and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What you do when you're young and opinionated until you realize that the world is so much better when you just open it wide open. But yeah, I think that, I Love You, period was probably, it was an oasis of like that bluesy sound that I liked in otherwise a sea of grunge music and bands that kind of song would have
something fun in the middle of a misery out there.
Exactly.
And definitely, let's see here. So I Love You, period, only made it to number 26 on the Billboard Hot 100, which is still great. Anybody would love to be in that place.
Agreed.
One other song I really liked after listening to the album that really got my attention was called Pick Up the Knife.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a good one. So I recommend people check that out. I'll be putting clips into the podcast of different songs that we talk about in between.
Awesome.
Because
in that case, did you get a chance to listen to the Yahoos at all?
I listened to the track you told me, "Baby, I Love You." Now, where did the Yahoos come from? What exactly is that?
That's another thing. Like, I don't know. I actually became aware of their existence because of that song.
Mm-hmm.
I was sitting in a bar and it was playing on the speakers. And like when it came time for that last part, "Baby, I love you, but leave me the fuck alone." Like it was, I went, "Who is this?" And I ran to the soundboard and I said, "Who is this?" So he looked it up and told, "Yeah, it's the Yahoos." I say, "Who are the Yahoos?" And it's like, "I think it's the singer from Georgia Satellites." It's like, what? So
again, he's
yeah,
singing in another band. Yeah, the list of people he's performed with, I probably don't even cover the tip of the iceberg, but we've got the Yahoos on there. An artist named Will Hodge, Trent Summer and the New Row Mob, the Suffering Bastards, the Bluefields. The Suffering Bastards is a great band name.
Yeah.
I love that. Baird doesn't drink at all. He keeps like a pretty healthy lifestyle, exercises on tour instead of indulging in stuff and things. But yeah, eventually, after doing a couple solo albums, the other one you told me to check out, I really like too, the Buffalo. What was it called?
Buffalo Nickel.
Buffalo Nickel. There was a song on there I really liked too, called Birthday. Now that album came out in 1996.
Yeah.
So I think he had 3 solo albums that were just called Dan Baird, and then he eventually put a band together again, Dan Baird and the Homemade Sin, which we've already talked about a bit. And there were a few ex-members of Georgia Satellites that were in the band with him. As far as, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, I remember that at the show that I saw him play with Homemade Sin, that people in the audience were like, you know, basically shouting out that he should do Keep Your Hands to Yourself. And I think he let somebody else in the band sing it.
Nice.
It's like, we'll do it, but I'm not going to. I'll let the drummer do it, or I'll let somebody else. So it was also pretty cool. Like, I was like, just not there. So, but I'll still do it. I'll still be on stage. You're just not going to hear me do it.
He probably gets requested that quite a bit.
Probably.
I believe it's the drummer who is still one of the Georgia Satellite members that are in the band. Okay. And even though Dan's not in the band anymore, the band has continued on. Yeah, that's a very recent development, which I will get to later. Okay. So he's prided himself on having a real vintage setup as far as for guitar tone goes, using classic tube amplifier sounds. Now, you being a guitar player yourself, how do you feel about the setup he used? Do you know much about what he was up to there?
I actually specifically wanted to know, because he had such like, him and the other guitar player played, you know, the tones were great. Again, like I said, it was a master class of rock and roll, like real honest to goodness rock and roll. And so I kind of snuck a peek on stage to see what he was using. And I think all he had was like a Blues Junior, which is a tiny, pretty small little amp. I think it's like 15 watts or something like that. Like it's really not that much, but it's one that he was able to probably crank up to 11 and keep it there and not blow everybody to the back of the room, and just have this incredible tone. And it was crunchy and beautiful. Wow. The second time I saw him actually was he was backing up Bobby Keys. And Bobby Keys was the saxophone player for the Rolling Stones for years and years and years. So he was just, I guess he was fronting the band. Bobby would tell stories about being on tour with the Stones, and then they'd kick off into something else. And yeah, it was a pretty cool evening as well.
I think a lot of people in rock and roll probably worked with him or wanted to, or networked with him in some capacity. The one story I read over the Wikipedia was that he met Neil Young once in a gym at a hotel, or in a gym locker room somewhere.
Yeah.
And they, in a locker room, somehow end up talking about touring, guitars, amplifiers. So I thought that was a cute story, because Neil ended up complimenting him on his music. So he'd already heard of him. This is something that Dan must have told in an interview at one time, or how would anyone know?
Yeah.
But yes, getting to the point, he announced his retirement in November that just passed. To refer to his wiki there, he actually wrote a big long retirement letter that refers to his health. That refers to the fact that he's just ready to still make music, but from his basement, and spend time with the people he loves.
Yeah.
He got sick 2017 with a type of lymphoma or leukemia, inherited leukemia called chronic lymphocytic leukemia that destroys the red blood cells. So although he says it's not the type of leukemia that will kill you, it'll definitely slow you down.
Yeah.
It's the way he'd put it. So hence his decision to retire is probably a big part of that.
Well, he just announced, I guess a few days ago, that he's coming up with some new music.
Oh,
So
good.
it's yeah, pardon me. And it seems to be sort of 60s inspired. I didn't click the link just because I was in the midst of doing other things, but I have to check that out for sure.
Oh, good. I'm gonna have to try to find that. I
Yeah.
put out the word to his representation to see if I could get him to come on the show at some point. So I'm still waiting to hear if something that could come out of that, because that'd be a good way for him to promote it if he was interested.
Yeah.
Yeah. One other interesting tidbit about Georgia Satellites and Keep Your Hands to Yourself was that they were number 2 on the Billboard charts with that song. And the only thing that kept them out of number 1 with the album and the single was Bon Jovi Slippery When Wet. And Living on a Prayer was number 1 at that time. I was like, oh,
fantastic.
Yeah, that juggernaut ruined it. But still,
wow.
Charting doesn't matter that much, does it?
And whatever happened to them anyways?
I know, right? My little figurines. I said the other day, I'm like, check out my figurines, and my friends, or no, I called them my Bon Jovi action figures. And friends like, those aren't action figures. Action figures have bendable parts.
Are those actually like Bon Jovi
figurines? They're
figurines?
Yeah. There's a guy named Todd McFarlane.
Yeah.
The creator of Spawn, who designed these.
Wow.
Someone's a little bit obsessed with Bon Jovi over here.
Well, let me, I think I can tell you this, that when is this going to be aired? When is this going to come out?
Within a month, probably.
Okay. Oh, Richie Sambora. That's funny.
Yeah, the guitar comes off and everything. There's even little picks on the floor around his feet.
Oh, wow.
So the detail's really cool.
So I think I can tell you this because I don't think she'll hear this before her birthday. So whenever I play a Bon Jovi song, if somebody requests it, I'll always say that this is a song by my wife's boyfriend. You know, because it's she's absolutely enamored with Bon Jovi.
Oh, really?
So yeah. So for her birthday, I actually got her an authentic John Bon Jovi autographed 8x10.
Oh.
It's not personalized or anything, but it does come with like a certificate of authenticity.
Sweet.
And yeah, so that's for her birthday, which is happening on Saturday.
You're a good husband. Well, that's fantastic.
And it's funny because it's not out of the realm of possibility that eventually I'm we might cross paths at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So I just don't want to it's yeah. I don't want her leaving me for him or something. Nah, it's not right. But I actually met his guitar player, his new guitar player, who's his name is Phil X.
Right.
And I wrote this story on Instagram after meeting him. But what happened was that I saw him and I went up to him and I said, "Hey man, can I get a picture? Because my wife is a huge Bon Jovi fan. I think she'd get a kick out of this." And the other thing too is that I actually bought this amp specifically because of the videos that he posts. So he has this little tiny, little tiny thing, little tiny amp that he uses for hotel room stuff.
Okay.
These hotel room videos.
That's awesome.
So, yeah. So he said, "Yeah, man, those amps are great, aren't they?" I said, "Yeah, they really are." I said, "All right, cool. Oh, and by the way, tell your wife that I quit Bon Jovi." And then the picture got taken a second after. I went, "Wait, what?" He says, "I'm just kidding." He walked away. So.
Oh yeah. You know what's funny is the day before Richie Sambora quit the band, it was the Calgary show that he didn't show up to. Oh. And I was at the Edmonton show, obviously, the next day.
Right.
So that was crazy because everybody was watching this in the Bon Jovi fandom world was watching to see what was going to happen that night, and from all the clips and everything, without Richie there. So the Calgary show, John did a lot of the guitar playing himself. Mm-hmm. Plus, they've always had people like Bobby Bandiera in the band and to play rhythm and such. So it wasn't a nightmare or anything. I thought it was really cool to see how they would cope without Richie. Very next day, Edmonton show. I'm there. I'm waiting to see what's going to happen. Welcome in Phil X. And that was it. Very next day. He already had his very first show at Bon Jovi, and I was there. And did such a fantastic job, even on like the vocal harmonies.
From Frozen Ghost to playing it with Bon Jovi. That's pretty cool.
You went to NAMM, didn't you? Did you go to the last one NAMM festival that happened?
I did.
Tell me
I
some
actually
cool
even
stuff that
got.
happened.
Okay, well, actually, I was almost. You just reminded me. I actually got a friend of mine to take a picture of Nuno Betancourt for you, and then I forgot that he had it, and I forgot to ask him to send it. So hopefully he still has it and he can send it on over so I can send it over to you.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Nuno's there, like, from what I've seen, Nuno's there every year because he lives in
Yeah.
LA anyway, so it's easy for him to be there. But
Yeah.
that's on my bucket list, is to go to NAMM. So maybe when this whole like health crisis thing is over, one day I can go.
Yeah. Well,
I
hopefully this
know a
crisis will
guy.
end sooner than later.
I know a guy that could go to NAMM.
Who's that?
Boris T. Blackwood.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah, he's got an in there for sure.
Uh-huh.
But and
Yeah,
actually,
NAMM was it's always a really cool time, a really cool, you know, it's a great hang.
yeah, I've always
And it's but I mean it's gotten better. Like I've been a few times, and before, like it's all about, you know, I've now got friends there that when I go and I can hang out, I feel like I've actually got a reason to go. Whereas before I was like, you know, I felt like I was such a tourist.
Did you go
So
by yourself when the first time you went?
yeah. Yeah.
See, I would probably be nervous about talking to people, but now that you know people there, that's great.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I mean, it becomes such a cool hang
hmm.
because you know, like everybody's scattered all across the country and sometimes the world. So you know, it's like a great way, like, you know, everybody kind of converges in Anaheim for, you know, the weekend or something, and you try and at least sneak in a hello and maybe a hug here and there, and then so actually one of the things that happened this last time was, okay, so the year before, so that'd be 2019. I ran into Doug Aldrich, and
Doug Aldrich.
yeah, he's a guitar player, played with you know, like Whitesnake, and he's just one of these guys that he's everywhere. Once you start looking into him, you'll start realizing, oh, he played with that band. Oh, he was there. He did this. Like, yeah, I think his newest thing is he's in a band called the Dead Daisies with John Corabi.
Oh yes, the old Motley Crue singer, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, anyways, I ran into him and I said, "Hey, like, you know, can I get a picture?" And so we took a picture, and then I posted that, and Tiffany wrote, "Oh, two of my favorites." I went, "What?" So I called her up and said, "What's that about?" And she said, "Well, Doug actually did a tour with me back in the day." So I was like, "Wow, I'm going to put that little tidbit of information into my back pocket for later." So when I went this past year, I ran into him again, and I said, "Hey, man, we got something in common." So you toured with Tiffany? He goes, "Yeah, yeah, I was there for a while." I was like, "How do you know that?" I said, "Well, actually, I played with her for 8 years." And so we had a nice little bonding moment there for a minute.
No kidding. And neither of you knew, and that's just
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. And like here I am, like, you know, full on hero worship, and he turns out to be a peer. It's like, wait a second, we got something in common. Oh, cool.
Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
I pulled up his Wikipedia on the side here just to see what kind of projects he is involved in. It's quite the list. Quite the list.
Yep.
Discography. Ooh, Dio, Whitesnake, Burning Rain, Revolution Saints, Dead Daisies, 2020. Wicked.
Is there a picture? Because the guy's got great hair.
He's got like Sebastian Bach hair.
Yeah,
it's
he's
nice.
Dude's. Yeah, he rocks the hair.
Yeah, he's a handsome fellow. That's for sure. What's one of your favorite songs by Dan Baird that we can spin on the show?
Oh wow. I need to find something good. Can I take a second?
Yeah, you can. I can edit the shit out of this.
All right. I'm going to open up iTunes and figure something out because it's going to be a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I should have been expecting that.
I sometimes ask questions in interviews that I realize I need to give people more time to think about. But yeah, and then it's kind of an afterthought.
It's all good. Let's see here. Store. You know, I guess my first instinct would be like, "Baby, I love you," but I don't know if you have what your thing about swearing is.
It's swearing is fine. We talk about anything on here and we swear. It's fine.
Okay.
Hmm. It's funny. We did a show on the band Odds. Are you familiar with them? Canadian band.
Yeah, love the odds. As
They're
a matter
very
of fact.
their very first album. There's a song called "Windy Under the Stars" or something like that. Are you
Yeah.
aware of that song? It's I fucked the chorus is it's this beautiful little like sweet tune, and then the chorus says I fucked Wendy under the stars the night when Elvis died or something to that effect. And it catches you right away. You're like, what did they just say? And then they repeat it and you're like, nice.
Wow.
Interesting.
All right. Let's I think okay. I've got one or two I can. Okay, I got one or two I can sort of look at here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which song
So if
would you
you
like
don't
to
want to do
recommend?
"Baby, I Love You,"
Oh, I'm
so
doing Baby I Love You.
okay, good, because it's not him singing it, but he's definitely in there.
Well, we'll throw in a clip of it.
Yeah, which is such a great song. You know, it's hard to choose just one because I'm looking at the list now, and there's a let's see, like "I Love You" period, which you're already going to be putting in, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
His version of "Hush" by Deep Purple is amazing. There's a song called "Dixie Boaterand," which is it's almost like. Do you remember the video, the Aerosmith video for I think it's "Crazy," the one with Liv
Oh yeah,
Tyler and was it Alicia Silverstone?
that's right.
I don't know how I managed to pull that out of my ass, but I did.
Yeah.
So, anyways, it like Dixie Boaterand is almost like the song that should have been playing over Aerosmith's uh, "Crying" or "Crazy" video. So it
Wow.
kind of it's it basically tells the story of of those two crazy people. Um, Cumberland River is another really good one.
Mm,
Yep.
okay.
I'm really bad at choosing favorites of anything. Like I've people ask me, well, like, what's your favorite this or favorite food, favorite song, favorite anything. It's like
Ah,
it's always so like it's all mood based. I have no
yeah.
favorites of anything, and it's annoying that it like my wife hates it.
I was gonna I was gonna say, what would make you like this is a question that I ask people almost every show, and this is the one that I should give them a little notice on.
Okay.
Something that makes you nostalgic for the 90s, whether it be clothing, a food item, candy, a band, a feeling, something that you just remember that you associate with that time period.
Oh wow. There's what do I associate with the '90s? Holy cow! Because like I've been spending so much time thinking about thinking about the '80s that the '90s I've never even really thought about it. I mean, I guess like flannel would be a big one.
Yeah.
um,
I mean, the reason I do this show is basically because everything that I discovered musically was from like 90 to like 96, 97,
right.
where I was developing my tastes.
Okay.
And that's why like this is my passion project,
Oh, that's awesome.
you know?
You know, and it's like for me, I don't know, I might be a few years older than you or whatever, but because like you know, my first concert ever was Whitesnake and Motley Crue. And
Ooh.
that was big. That would have been the Girls, Girls, Girls tour. I think that was like 87, I think. I remember looking it up at one point, but and my dad took me and two of my friends to see the concert.
Mhm.
So and like and they actually just brought down a bunch of the vinyl that I used to own when I was a kid, and like it's all actually Georgia Satellites is in there, uh, Iron Maiden is in there, and stuff like that. Like I
Mhm.
completely get, like, as you're growing up, the music that you listen to when you're growing up becomes sort of the uh, that's the foundation. That's the stuff that you're going to listen to forever.
And it's also the bar that you judge everything upon for the future of what you listen to as well. I feel like
Yeah.
if it compares with that, I mean, a lot of people continue to listen to brand new music their whole lives, but I find that more often than not, there's a phenomenon where at the age of 30-ish, you
Hmm.
kind of stop listening to what's new. A lot of people do. And they just get stuck.
Right.
I'm guilty of it. I listen to some new stuff, but in order for me to really get engaged in it, it has to somehow remind me of stuff I already like.
Right.
For instance, I like Bruno Mars.
Yeah.
Why? Because he's such a throwback.
Yeah. That's it. He's a super talented guy, and
Right.
he's a showman, and like he's actually very reminiscent of James Brown, but he took
Yeah.
what James Brown did and then like took it to the next level up. Like I remember I was actually playing a show at here in Nashville when the Grammys was on,
Hmm.
and from where I was sitting, because I do an acoustic show every Sunday night, and where I was sitting on the stage, I can actually see a television that was playing the Grammys, and I didn't hear the song, but I knew it was Bruno Mars. And they basically had this whole choreographed thing where they did the like the James Brown moves and everything else, and I went, "What the hell is that?" So I went home like right afterwards and tried to find a clip, which thankfully somebody already had thrown on to YouTube or whatever, and it was for the song "Runaway." So not only was the choreography and like the shiny gold lame suits and stuff like that so eye catching, it made me want to go and check out the song that they were doing. And
Mm.
then the song was so great that I had to go and buy that like that night, and it was just yeah. And if you haven't seen him do "Runaway," like everybody should go and check it out. Everybody go look.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's amazing, amazing.
Yes.
Um, yeah, and it's I'm really guilty of not listening to a lot of stuff either. So I do a lot of shows. Like I said, I do a lot of shows in Nashville when I'm not on the road, and some of these shows are like in some of the touristy bars and stuff like that. Um, and I've developed a 3-year rule where I don't bother checking a song or an artist out unless they've been around for at least 3 years.
Hey,
Because
I
like
like that rule.
well, it's I don't know how much brain space I have, and I don't want to waste it on something that people are going to forget about in a week. So, like
avoid
whatever's hot today, it's like
avoid the flash in the pans and
yeah.
just yeah.
Well, and you
If they
never
have
know who's going to
staying
be
power, why do they have staying power? Well, maybe it
yeah.
was actually good.
Well, I mean, and the staying power kind of reveals itself after 3 years. So like there's songs like, all right, chicken fried. It's never going to go away. Now it's like it's part of the lexicon. Or
I love Zach Brown Band.
yeah. Or for me, I think the newest songs that I've got, which again, like I get away with so much just because like they'll say, "Hey, do you know this artist?" I said, "No, but do you like Skinner?" Like how many times I've been able to get away with that. And I go back and I listen to. I actually just worked up a ukulele version of "Fly" by Sugar Ray.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh man, I'm into that. Are you now you've been streaming. You've been streaming from your Facebook page not only during pandemic, but you've been doing it before that.
Yeah. So thankfully, I didn't run into the problem that so many of my friends have, because like since I got into it 2 years ago or something, that and then like the shelves were just bare. Anything to do with
Couldn't.
podcasting, anything to do with like streaming. It was gone. Unbelievable.
You can't find a webcam right now, let alone all the other stuff too. But it's
Yeah.
like I felt kind of blessed too. I've been saving up and buying things with the ultimate plan of eventually doing a podcast, and I started that half a year ago where I had
Right.
everything. So it was just luck
Yeah.
that I was able to put it all together.
It's a beautiful thing.
I'm glad you mentioned Zach Brown Band because like I really liked the album he did where he with the song with Chris Cornell, Heavy is the Head.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm a fan for sure.
Awesome.
So you've just been putting out music lately at like really recent release, right? So tell everybody where they can find your stuff and listen to your music and buy and support your artists.
Yeah. Well, you can go to my website, which is trevorfinlay.com. My new record, which actually is funny. I have a copy of it sitting right here.
Show us. Ooh,
It's
cool.
the vinyl.
Very cool.
Yeah. And so that actually is, that's actually only available from my gigs or from my website. That's on my store.
Mm.
And then for like I the way I did it actually is I put it out in 3 different incarnations. So in physical copies. So I've got CDs, I've got the vinyl, and I have USB drives, which have the record on it. And
Nice.
as well, it's also available on iTunes and Apple Music and Spotify.
All
And
right.
at the end of the day, I don't care if people buy it or not. I just want people to hear it because like it's, I'm super proud of it. So.
Yeah, you want to hear that people enjoy the things you're proud of, and that's the joy of doing it to begin with. And I'm so glad that you took some time to chat with me today. We'll have to do it again. We'll
Absolutely.
do another episode down the road here.
Well, I looked at the list, and there's a few that I'd love to contribute to. So
isn't it a crazy list? Like, there's a lot of like, who?
I didn't recognize maybe 3/4 of the people on there, but I did see that David Lee Roth was one of the people that he did have on there, and
we want to talk about his '90s work. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I've read his book probably 3 times.
Great.
He has a book called Crazy. He has a book called Crazy from the Heat, and it's
if you can talk at length about David Lee Roth, we have a deal.
It's disgusting. It's another one of those people that I'm pretty sure that I would totally embarrass myself by how much I actually know.
It's okay. That's how I feel about these guys.
Yeah.
That's funny. Actually, I had Billy Sheehan on the show, and he got.
You should have booked him for David Lee Roth. That would have been amazing.
We talked a little bit about David Lee Roth. Yeah.
Really? Oh, that's cool.
Talking to Billy and Eric was like a dream come true. That was the. I felt like so happy in those moments. Just I even like to listen to the episode again for both of them because I'm just like, I can't believe that happened.
Can I tell you my Billy Sheehan story?
Yes.
So so back when MySpace was still a thing, he actually made a comment on my page. Like he went out of his way and made a comment on my page. Like, it's like, what? That's so crazy. And so I actually ran into him at NAMM, actually in Anaheim, several years after that. And I went up to him and I said, hey man, like, just so you know, the fact that you took the time to say something on my MySpace page, like it was unbelievable. Like it gave me a boost that's, I wouldn't have, who knows? Like it meant the world to me. And he said the strangest thing. It was like, he said something along the lines of, well, I like human beings. I like to think I are one.
I love it.
Yeah. It was like, awesome.
He's very intelligent. He can talk about topics at length.
Yeah.
And keep you engaged in the conversation.
But I don't know that he's all that into compliments or thank yous or
maybe he's uncomfortable with compliments.
Or maybe it's just like you're not going to say anything that he hasn't heard already. And
that's tough.
How do you stay sincere? Like how do you sincerely say thank you when you've heard the same thing millions of times?
One thing I like to do when I talk to somebody that I want them to remember what I said is I try to think of a song I like of theirs that's very obscure.
Yeah.
Or maybe compliment or talk about the songwriting more so than anything else if they wrote the
Mhm.
song, because that's the way you know what, if somebody says whatever about my singing, fine, but if they tell me that the songwriting on a song was great, you've got my attention.
Right.
If I wrote it, I'm
Mhm.
like, that's the greatest compliment you could have paid me right there.
That's awesome.
So
It's true.
that's how I feel. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. That was fun.
Yeah, we'll definitely do it again. Um, and then I'll put it on social media. If what's the birth date, by the way? I don't want to release the episode before then. I
Oh,
probably
it's
won't, but
this Saturday, so
oh,
it should be safe.
yeah, we've got
Yeah,
time then.
she'll have opened it. I will have filmed the reaction and posted it on social media.
Nice. I'm so
Because
happy for her.
I think I've outdone myself on this one. So
It's extremely thoughtful. From one hardcore Bon Jovi fan to another, I'm excited for her.
awesome. Well, there'll be pictures.
Okay, cool.
All right,
And yeah, when this comes out, I'll tag you and everything if you want to go and give it a share, and
please,
you'll know. I'll let you know when.
please.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
All right. And take care. We'll see you later.
Okay. Bye bye.